Every story you love, every invention that moves you, every idea you wished was yours, all began as nothing. Just a blank page with a blinking cursor, asking a simple question. What do you see? Great ideas start on Mac. Find out more on apple.com/Mac.
Welcome to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and Mr. Taylor, whose writings on the industry you can regularly read over on The Wrap, and whose musings on the Mission Impossible movies you can listen to on the Light Diffuse podcast. He and I are recording this week's show on Sunday, March 19th, 2023, and I know it's been a while since shows, and this is totally not Drew's fault. I had to go out to California to do some work. In fact, we had a lovely meeting on, what was it, Saturday?
Yeah, last Saturday.
Yes,
yeah.
You know, and the highlight of the meal was I got the one thing on the menu at Bob's Big Boy that I thought would be helpful. I got the vegetable quesadilla and took one bite of it, and it landed on the front of my shirt. Which, by the way, I'm on my third trip to the wash trying to get that stain out.
You know, you were punished for it. I told Len that I was sorry I didn't get to see him when he was out here too, and I said that you and I met at a diner, you know, for a very intense hour or so, and I said it was basically like De Niro and Pacino meeting in Heat.
Oh.
That was basically our.
There we go.
Before the big robbery.
But
yeah.
That's it. I love that movie. Aren't they doing a series or a prequel?
Well, there was a novel that was written that's excellent.
That's right.
That came out last summer. Yeah, they've got to do something with it. It's too good not to. I mean, it sort of continues the story and is also a flashback to before the events of the movie. It's really great. Okay. So if you are looking for something to read, look at Heat 2. Okay, I will chase that down. But of course, the day after that, March 12th, was, of course, the Academy Awards. And to the surprise of absolutely no one who's been paying attention to what's going on in the industry, Guillermo del Toro took home the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. And The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse took home the Academy Award for Best Animated Short. How did we feel about this, Drew? Well, I thought that there was a chance that Puss in Boots: The Last Wish could pull through and win Best Picture.
Yeah.
But
in the best of all possible worlds, I think Turning Red was a great movie. Puss in Boots was certainly a great film. And it would have been lovely for both of them to get some more professional recognition. But how long had Guillermo had Pinocchio in the work? A decade or more, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you'll talk to people who said, oh, this was from the 2012 version of the movie.
Wow.
And it's like, oh, my Lord, this has been worked on for so long.
Yeah.
Did you see, Jim, that like $500 version of the Insights making of book that comes with a little maquette of Pinocchio?
Somebody showed that on Twitter. I had to admit I had impure thoughts. But at the same time, I am overdrawn at the animation book bank. Did I tell you about what I got myself for my 64th birthday?
No, please let me know.
Okay. Stuart Inc., who has, the wonderful bookstore in Torrance, but he also has an online presence. And Stuart put up that he had a copy of Bob Thomas's The Art of Animation. And now I know if you're an animation fan, you know of, for example, there was the version they did for Beauty and the Beast. There was a version that they did for Hercules. I'm talking about the original one, Drew. This was done in 1958, ahead of the release of Sleeping Beauty. And it's, it's kind of a piece of the true cross, at least as far as animation history is concerned. It's literally the first real Disney animation history book. And I have been chasing this thing for 4 decades. And so Stuart puts up a note. It's like, hey, I got a copy. So anyway, I'm holding myself back. It's like, no, you're going to be strong. You're not going to pay that much for a book. But anyway, it's last Sunday. And Alice and I are doing a combined daddy-daughter day for our combined birthdays. So First, we go to the Autry Museum of Western Heritage, which, by the way, that's a great take-in. Have you ever been?
I haven't been. You know, I live very close to it, but I never have gone. You know, I'm obviously obsessed with it because it was one of the buildings that Imagineering built during that weird period.
And again, that's one of the reasons you got to go, because the weird part of it is, I mean, it's a lovely museum, but you go downstairs and there's this wonderful enclosed outdoor courtyard that you know instantly. It's like, okay, that's WDI Rockwork. You're suddenly looking at like Big Thunder, Splash Mountain, that level of detailing and artwork with the rockwork. And like you, it's been on my list of things I've been meaning to get to during trips to LA. We go there, and then I ask us, well, what do you want for your birthday present? And it's like, well, I could get some art books. So we drive over to Torrance and we walk into Stewart's store, and Alice is perusing the shelf, and I'm trying not to spend money. And in fact, I know you do this at, when you go to a Barnes and Noble or that sort of thing, when you stand in the making of aisle or the art of aisle,
yes,
and literally do the need it, got it, need it, and it was like, I was really pleased. I was standing there in the art of section. It's like, oh, I don't have anything I need here. I can get out easy. But then Stewart walks up to me, we start chatting, and I ask, you don't still have that art of the Bob Thomas book? And oh yes, he does. And he reaches up and he pulls it down, and it's in its plastic sleeve, and Drew, it's beautiful. More to the point, it's got stories I've never heard before about Sleeping Beauty. There's a great section in this book where they talk about where Maleficent turns into the dragon. And then suddenly the sound guys are at Disney. It's like, well, what does a dragon who breathes fire sound like? And so they actually reach out to the U.S. military and have them send training films for the soldiers working with flamethrowers. And it's just sort of like, okay, all right. So yeah, if a big gout of flame comes out of a dragon's mouth, that's what it kind of sounds like. Okay, we'll do that. Likewise, they talked about the whole backstory for Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather that get dropped. It's hiding in plain sight. Like Flora was literally in charge of all of the plants and the trees and that sort of thing. And Fauna was in charge of all the cute little animals. And then Merryweather was literally in charge of the weather. And these were their powers as the good fairies. But that's the thing. This book is full of that sort of stuff that for some reason never got carried into the other official animated histories for Disney. And I'm just paging to the book and I realize, oh dear Lord, I gotta buy this damn thing. And so I basically paid for this book what I paid for my first car.
Wow.
But I have it. I now have it. I don't say the number out loud around Nancy because she'll kill me. But I finally have this book.
I love that. I think the only one I have is like the Beauty and the Beast one. That's how late the one I have is.
We'll tell you what, to give you some idea, again, this is still a book going into my library. So we're finishing the transaction, and Stuart literally goes to slip the book back into the plastic sleeve. And I'm like, no, leave that here. This is going into a working library.
Yes.
Toward that end, tell you what, at some point I'm going to throw this in a box to you. You have to read it because, again, what's so great about this book is it's in real time. There's at one point in the book that Thomas turns to Walt and goes, well, how long has Sleeping Beauty been in development? And he's like, too long. It's just sort of, you just get the sense from Walt, it's like, oh God, just finish the stupid movie. I mean, they even talk, the first time ever, I've actually gotten confirmation on the fact that they stopped production of Sleeping Beauty so they could pull all the artists off of it to go work on Disneyland.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's some amazing stories in here that are nowhere else. Anyway, folks, we have a lot of news to get to this week, and as always, the news portion of Fine Tuning is brought to you by Storybook Destinations, trusted travel partner of the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. For a worry-free travel experience every time, please book online at storybookdestinations.com. I guess the first thing we should talk about today, Drew, is something you've been telling me, off air for quite some time now about Ruby Kraken.
Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken.
Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, I'm using the abbreviated title, but yeah,
Yes.
I mean, we are what, 3 months out?
Yeah, June 30th, I believe, is the release date. It was very funny that they announced the movie and announced the cast, and there was a trailer, and there was a poster, all in like a couple of hours the other morning.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting approach.
This thing looks great.
I agree.
Which puzzles me, that why has this been under wraps so tightly for so long?
I don't know. Something tells me that it maybe had something to do with the Oscars. Like they just really needed to focus on Puss through March, and then they could focus on Ruby Gillman. Because if you'll notice, the trailer I think came out on Thursday morning or something, and it's so like literally 3 days after the Oscars. But you're right. I think it has a great look. It's got this kind of like Lisa Frank, trapper keeper type
Very much
aesthetic.
so. Very much so.
Yeah.
If somebody said to me Jane Fonda as a voice for animation, remember she also just did the head of the World of Luck for John Lasseter's Luck.
Yep.
But I wouldn't have thought of her as a great voice for animation. But she's all over this trailer as sort of the Grandma Kraken, and really a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think her narration kind of like carries. If you haven't seen the trailer, check it out. But her narration kind of guides the whole thing, and from the statement she released, she sounded really excited to be a part of the project. And it was directed by Kirk D'Amico, who we've had on the show before for Vivo.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the original Croods with Chris Sanders, and I love how this looks, and you got to admire just kind of the sheer balls of DreamWorks bringing this out just weeks after the live action Little Mermaid is going to hit, where basically the villain of this film appears to be a riff on Ariel. I kind of like how the planets aligned there,
Yeah, we always love a good scary mermaid.
This is true.
And this looks like it's that kind of thing.
Okay.
So,
all right. Now speaking of oddly timed stories, we had news just this past week that Swampy Marsh, well, first of all, we had the story 3 months ago almost, of the revival of Phineas and Ferb, 40 new episodes, 2 seasons of the show, coming to Disney Plus, and I guess also being repurposed for Disney Channel at some point. But we did have, I think we mentioned this on a recent show, there was the image of Dan Povenmire and Swampy with instruments, something to the effect of getting the band back together.
Wasn't that on Dan's Instagram or something? It wasn't an official image, right?
No, it was not.
Yeah.
It was not. And I'm kind of intrigued why this took so long to announce. I mean, wasn't Swampy supposedly working on his own project for Disney Animation, much like Hamster and Gretel? Dan.
Oh, God, Hamster and Gretel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was. I mean, yeah, I think the assumption was that he would be back as a voice at the very least. But this announcement was supposed to happen like more than 10 days before it actually did. And I don't really know what the holdup was about. There must be some intense wrangling, because how they announced that, and he had a very specific photo that everybody had to use, and I don't know. I don't know what happened. If any listeners have any insight, please let us know.
Okay. Okay.
Obviously, we're very happy that they're back together.
No,
and both working on
absolutely.
it, but,
I love both of these guys, but it just kind of intriguing that it took this long to sort of seal the deal, so to speak. And speaking of things taking a while, it was 2 years ago now that Fox announced that it was developing Bedrock, which was supposed to be this primetime adult animated Flintstones reboot, which Elizabeth Banks was the executive producer of the thing, and obviously she's having a moment with Cocaine Bear, which, by the way, you saw Cocaine Bear, yes?
Oh yeah, I saw it months ago, but I just bought it on digital because I need to show my wife. Have you watched it yet? It's so fun.
I know Cocaine Bear from its original iteration, where it was a story that Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark shared on My Favorite Murder. As out there as Cocaine Bear the movie is, Drew, you have to check out the Cocaine Bear in real life story. It is...
Well, I can't handle the real life story, Jim, because we should say this, the bear didn't make it after consuming that much cocaine.
This is true. This is true. But
Jim was on writers' rooms in the 70s, and so probably, Jim, you might have been in the room with the Cocaine Bear once or twice.
On advice of counsel. I think we're going to change the subject here. But no, I will chase that down. I even enjoyed the Cocaine Bear gags in the Academy Awards. Speaking of which, what did you think of this year's ceremony? Overall, how did they do?
I thought it was nice. It was a nice kind of celebration of movies. It was in stark contrast to last year's, where everybody seemed kind of ashamed by the movies, including the animated feature presentation. So I was very happy that it was just kind of a nice ceremony. Mm-hmm. There weren't a lot of ruffled feathers. It was just sort of classy and seemed to move along pretty quickly. But now, what did you think?
I saw that there were issues, but face it, there are always issues when it comes to the in memoriam thing. Though I have to admit, as a longtime Paul Sorvino fan, that seemed to be, it's like, really? I mean, we're just talking about Pacino, Scorsese, that world, and it just sort of like, you can't leave that out. But what they did with that, Burny Mattinson did make the reel, right?
I think he did. Who I was, very happy they included was Ralph.
Ralph Eggleston. Yeah.
That really, I saw that and I remembered he was gone, and I was very sad about that.
Toward that end, when we get back from this break, Drew and I are going to talk about the Disney legend Burny Mattinson, who we lost recently.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
Every Who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton. But where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one Who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and no prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
The detective said missing kids usually come home. What happens when they don't?
Based on a true story.
Police looking for John Gacy.
We discovered bodies. By the looks of it, they're younger men. The things he did to those kids. He's sick.
The system failed these families.
Devil in Disguise, John Wayne Gacy. Streaming now, only on Peacock.
Do you know how many there are?
Up to you to find out.
Before we get to the sad stuff, you had mentioned, Drew, that we should talk about the Little Mermaid trailer that just dropped. Is this the teaser or is this the trailer?
No, this is the full length. This is the full length trailer.
Okay,
yeah.
So it just amazes me what people say about this, because I see a movie I actually want to see. But I think you and I felt that way from what we saw at the D23 Expo last September.
Yeah, I think it looks fun. I mean, I'm very excited about the Lin-Manuel songs.
Yep.
It was pretty weird to have a commercial just being presented on the Oscars, especially because I was on Slack with people who were actually in the ceremony, and they're going, we're watching a presentation about diversity in the Oscars, and everybody else is watching a commercial for Little Mermaid. This is very odd. Well,
yeah. It's a Disney company. They do what they do.
Yes.
Toward that end, you went down to Disneyland, right? For the opening of the Really For Real, a full-size Mickey's Toontown, right?
Yeah, I was really impressed. You will see reporting from me later this week, maybe.
Okay.
And I should really talk to Jim Schul about it too, since he was there for 1.0.
Yeah.
But I was very impressed. I thought it looked really good. I know people are making fun of that tree online, which it did not even cross my mind to think about concept art from 18 months ago. But shocker. But no, everything looked really good. It's a really inclusive land. There are no curbs. There are a lot of sort of sensory things, and there also there's this. It's very interesting, sort of across from Chippendale's coaster, Gadget Coaster, I think is what it's called.
Yep.
Now, there is sort of this dark enclave. And it's like, what is that? And it's actually a spot where you're supposed to go and kind of decompress and shed the external excitement of the land. And obviously they had kids with special needs or kids that need that kind of quiet with their experience. And I thought that was really interesting.
When I went to Legoland, Florida last year, they were among the very first theme parks in the country that had been autism certified. I mean, the notion was you could literally walk up to an attraction and there was a sign to the effect of, okay, this is the noise level. This is the, that if you have a child that has these sorts of sensitivities, this is what you need to be aware of going in. But the very thing you're talking about is now a sort of a go-to thing with theme park design, the notion that all children should be able to enjoy these parks, but a kid with autism might need a place to go to sort of regroup for a moment. And the fact that these are being included as part of design, I mean, I really applaud the themed entertainment professionals who are finding ways to fit these in. Well, that's cool to hear that's there.
Yeah, if you look at the fountain that everybody was taking pictures of, which I think is a beautiful sort of centerpiece to the land, but there's the main fountain, and then there are sort of smaller fountains around it at the height of a child, so that they can actually splash and touch the water, and that they're not afraid of that kind of interactivity. And I thought it was just really interesting. Yeah, they were sort of trumpeting it as the most accessible theme park land they've ever designed, really. And I thought that was super interesting because after I got home yesterday, of course I was watching hours and hours of promo stuff from 93, and all it was just like, check out how wacky this is. And so to have this kind of mind frame was really interesting as a point of comparison.
I don't think I was there for the press day, but I was there for opening day of Toontown in 93, and I still remember the Jolly Trolley
kind of teetering around.
There we go. Yeah. Crushing toddlers left and right. It just never, that one was never going to make it. So
the important thing, Jim, is that they left up the unused second story of Roger Rabbit, so we can all still look up there and say, "Oh, that's where it was supposed to go."
I have stories. We'll share them later.
Okay.
Before I forget, talking about Toontown and Mickey and the origin of the company, all that. Happy bit of news coming out of Missouri. The Thank You Walt Disney Inc. These are the folks who have been trying to preserve the earliest part of Walt Studios. And when we say that, I mean, we're talking about the original Laugh-O-Gram Studios in Kansas City. 100 years ago, in 1922 was when this was going on. And they just got a $2 million grant to... they've been preserving the building that Laugh-O-Gram Studio was in, but they've gotten a $2 million grant from the state to continue working. So I'm actually...
That's really... Yeah, that's good news. You've probably been reached out to the same people as I have, where they say, like, nobody it's been a hard project for the last few years, and you just bringing this up reminded me of, like, all this stuff that was going on with it, but... Yeah, I'm very excited. So do they have plans for it, Jim? What is the... Well,
again, the notion has always been, face it, it's an early part of the Walt's career, and we're talking with the Laugh-O-Grams, we're talking about, like his version of Puss in Boots and that sort of thing, the early lesser Disney. So it's always been about early history of the company, educational outreach, that sort of thing. So this is going to help not only with preservation of the building, but also with educational programs and outreach, and hopefully raising the profile. So it's good news for the Thank You Walt Disney people who, as you've mentioned, it's been a tough couple of years, particularly with the pandemic, to keep this project in the spotlight. So it's nice that it happened.
Yeah, I think there was some question about ownership at some point.
There was, so, but again, hopefully that's all in the review at this point. So,
yes. Okay, cool. That's great news.
That is. Okay, now, as we mentioned earlier in the show, we lost Disney legend Burny Mattinson back. In fact, this was Monday, February 27th, 87 years old, and the longest serving cast member in the history of the Walt Disney Company. In fact, there were plans already in the works, Drew, for his 70th anniversary service award. It was going to be presented to him on June 4th.
Yeah, I saw that. I want to know what the statue was going to be.
Oh, God, that's right.
Like who...
Yeah, who's 70?
Yeah.
Okay,
Captain Hook? I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But
Carl from Up? I don't know. Yeah.
So in your time at the company, again, you're working on My Disney and all the other parts of the company you worked at. You ran into Burny a number of times. I mean, and also as a working reporter. I think we were pre-gaming. You were talking about a Jungle Book press event, that sort of thing.
Yeah, whenever there would be a home video release or something, it would be like, all right, let's get him out here. It's like Floyd was another one that they always trot out, for these anniversaries.
This is true.
But yeah, he's amazing. I mean, what is so astounding about him is you're right, how long he was working. I mean, I know that we've told the story about how the dog in Strange World was named after Burny because director Don Hall would call him Legend. And that's what they call the dog, Legend. So... I think I didn't realize that he was actually working on Strange World though too, like in the story department or something. So this guy just never stopped. Well, it's just amazing.
I mean, think about it. A career that starts at Disney with Lady and the Tramp. And what's important about Burny is that at a time when things were really, really dark and really, really bleak, and animation was just hanging on by a string. This is the guy who directed, the first Mickey Mouse thing in decades, the Mickey's Christmas Carol, and then is the co-director of, I would argue, the film that actually starts the second golden age of Disney animation, which is The Great Mouse Detective.
No argument here, Jim.
Yeah, I mean,
I love that movie.
It's the interesting thing is, if you watch it today, animation in some parts of it is pretty shaky. There's some interesting choices, but the story is so strong that you're invested. You hang in there. In fact, we were just talking about Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and I love that in that attraction, they do make a point of, acknowledging, in that wonderful queue, which covers, Mickey's full career. It's like, you got to have Mickey's Christmas Carol. And they have the bag of toys, and I forget what else they've got there. But, I was recording a show with Jim Schul earlier today. And he was talking about that, one of the reasons that when you work in an Imagineering, he came in 88, you sought out the people like Claude Coates or Rolly Crump because you were looking for tribal knowledge. The people who'd been there a long time who knew, okay, we do this, but we don't do that. Well, on the animation side of the fence, that's what Burny Mattinson was. Have you ever talked with Steven Anderson about working on when they did the Winnie the Pooh feature in 2011, how Burny, because he'd worked on the earlier Poohs, was somebody they really consulted to the effect of. Right. I remember talking with Steven about the Winnie the Pooh feature and how does it, asked him flat out, how does it feel to succeed where Walt Disney failed? And he kind of got big-eyed at me. Well, what do you mean? It's like, well, Walt Disney tried to do a Winnie the Pooh feature and couldn't figure it out. And he's like, geez, I didn't think about that. Maybe we shouldn't have done this. So you can draw your own conclusion there, folks. But no, I mean, but the fact that Burny was there, and when they were facing down story problems or the like, you know, that he was a guy you could go to and it's like, okay, we're dealing with this issue. And it's like, well, okay, on 101 Dalmatians, we face the same issue, and this was our workaround. Or just when you think about the second generation, the second golden age of animated films, and the fact that he was there when Disney was doing Lion King and Pocahontas and Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin, all those, and that he was in the building for creative continuity.
Well, we have to, people don't talk about how disagreeable those older animators became in the 80s with this new group that came in. And Burny was never like that. He was always just such a great, source of, like you said, an amazing reference people who were coming in the door. But also, it's like, there's this article I always refer to in the New York Times with them kind of bad-mouthing Don Bluth and other young animators around the time of the Black Cauldron. And it's just like, you never got that from Burny, ever. No. And it's just a testament to just what a great guy he was, and someone who was really invested in the next generation of storytellers and trying to help them as much as he could. Yeah. It wasn't like there was no territorial nonsense with him.
No, absolutely. And in fact, it's so interesting you bring that up, because that if you were following Twitter or Instagram in the days afterwards, to see this generation of people who do story, I mean, like Paul Briggs, acknowledging or Hiram Osmond, who they lost and how important Burny was to them, and the sort of guy who was generous and would share. And yeah, I mean, that's you bring up an interesting point. Disney does tend to step over that issue, don't they? That the 9 old men. There should be another word in the middle there. Be 9 old grumpy old men.
Yes.
But the fact that there were the Burnys who could be gracious and generous and that sort of thing. And by the way, I was lucky enough to sit down with Dorothy McKim, a veteran Disney producer. She's been touring the country with that Disney animation immersive experience thing. And she was talking, she now works for the Disney, the legacy department of Walt Disney Feature Animation. And it's sad to lose Burny Mattinson, but it's important to note that in the Disney Legacy Animation, the legacy department of Walt Disney Feature Animation, we still have Eric Goldberg, Mark Henn, and Randy Haycock working on projects. But it's also worth noting that just last year, Disney hired, and mind you, they put out word that they were looking for new hand-drawn animators, and they got thousands of portfolios. And I want to say they interviewed 200 candidates out of those 1,000 portfolios and hired 5 new people. And I know 5 isn't a lot, but but the fact that this is Disney actually investing in hand-drawn, that's a great sign. And let's be happy that they're doing that, and more to the point that we lived in a time when there was a Burny Mattinson. So, it's just nice to have. So, okay, folks. So, I apologize. This is going to be a shortish show this week, and that's largely because Drew is crazy busy, and as you can hear, I'm getting over a cold, and we won't talk about
I think I'm getting into your cold as you're coming out of the cold.
There we go. Yeah. All right. So all right. Well, I'll ship the Iron Lung out to you along with the Bob Thomas book. So you'll have something to read there. It's on your sick bed. By the way, if you're on your sick bed and looking for something to entertain you, seriously, if you're not listening to Drew's Light the Fuse podcast, folks, you are missing out on some amazing stories. I mean, Drew, along with his equally talented co-host, Charles Hood, they take you behind the scenes on everything. Circling back to the Academy Awards here, you had to at least be happy with, they took home the editing award, right?
No, they took home sound.
There we go.
Editing was the one that was really the one that I was rooting for, but they did not get, sadly. But I was very happy. And if you want to listen to some stories from James Mather, who is now the newly minted Oscar winner from Top Gun Maverick, you can listen to that on the show. We just had him on.
Oh, well, there we go. Like it was a plan. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. By the way, we also have some other podcasts here you might enjoy listening to. We, of course, have Disney Dish that I do with Len Testa, though this week I have a guest host that I think people will enjoy. We also have Marvelous Disney, which I do with Aaron Adams, the gentleman who edits the podcast here, and the poor guy's got a lot of work ahead of him this week. Brian Gahn and I will be recording a new Looking at Lucasfilm at some time in the coming week. And Drew, as always, great fun to follow you on social media. Tell the nice folks where they can find you these days.
You can find me at Drew Tailored on Instagram and Twitter, although Twitter is becoming borderline unusable these days. I don't know what is going on, but it is rough. But I'm still there, so follow me.
Same thing here. Yeah. I am also on Twitter. Likewise, Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and over on Facebook as Jim Hill Media News. And I think that will do it for this week, folks. So thank you so much for listening, and Mr. Taylor and I will be back soon.